What's up, students? It's Coach Rod here. Hey, listen, my thoughts and prayers are with you guys. I hope everybody's doing well. I want to kind of get this class back going online and kind of start where we left off. We're going to be talking about the Bill of Rights today, which is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And kind of this is what I'm expecting you to do with this video. I want you to take out a pen and a piece of paper, or you can just use your laptop and type these notes up, however you want to do it. No pictures. Okay, don't send me no picturs. I want to see you either typed it or I want to see you hand wrote these notes. And what you're going to do is you're going to send me a copy of your notes on Edsby. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post this video, and then after this video, I'm going to put an assignment in Edsby that says, send me your notes. Send me your notes of the Bill of Rights. And what you're going to do is you're going to click that, and you're going to submit your notes from your phone or your device, whatever. Attach your picture of your notes, and you'll get points for just doing that. Okay, and then after the notes and after this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a follow-up pop quiz online. So I'm going to make a little 10 to 20 question assignment, and I'll post it up on Edsby. And what you can do is you can just click on it, and you'll be able to answer multiple choice and true false questions to make sure that you got this down in your head. Okay, the Bill of Rights. So listen, guys, go get you a pen and a piece of paper, and let's get started. Okay, guys, like I said, in the classroom, I would have you normally take notes. So what I'm going to do, put my little face off to the side here, and I've got my my set of notes just like it would be on my whiteboard in my classroom. I've got this up for you guys to copy down. What I want you to do is copy everything you see. I always get the question, Coach, can I put my own spin on it? Can I use shorthand? Can I abbreviate? No, copy everything that you see. There's a purpose for this. You're going to see these 10 amendments on the final exam, and I want to make sure that you got them. You know what I mean? And the way to do that is getting those reps, writing the notes down, and then I'm going to quiz you, like I said, later on here after we get done on Edsby. So copy them down. Get them all down. I want you to copy every single thing you see up on your screen. I want you to copy it down on your notes. We're going to go through all 10 amendments, okay, the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. Okay, while you're copying this down, I'm just going to kind of wrap a little bit and go through each one and kind of give you some examples and kind of bring it to life so that you guys will be comfortable with it when given a question. Okay, I'm also going to give you some hand signals throughout to kind of help you understand each of the 10 amendments, okay, as we go. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. We're going to start out with the First Amendment, and some things I want to tell you real quick as you're copying this down is I want you to understand that an amendment is a change or an addition to the Constitution. Okay, so once the Constitution was finalized back in the 1700s, right, we had almost immediately, to satisfy those anti-federalists, we had the Bill of Rights come out. So these are changes or additions to the Constitution. We actually just learned the amendment process before we went out on spring break of how you go about amending the Constitution. Well, there's only 27 of them, but these first 10 are called the Bill of Rights, and they were almost passed immediately after the Constitution was finalized, okay? Now, as we go through each one of these, what I want you to understand is, yeah, there's 10 amendments, but there's actually more than one right that we gain under each one of these amendments, potentially. So like, for example, this First Amendment, there's 5 rights that we gain. You'll see as I talk you through them, okay? So here we go with the First Amendment. There's 5 basic liberties. And that's one thing I want you to understand too. The Bill of Rights is our guaranteed rights and freedoms that the government can't take away from us, right? So as I go through each one of these, you know, you're learning about your rights, things that the government can't take away from you. And to be quite honest, the reason we have a government is to protect these rights. You know what I mean? So let's start out with the First Amendment, okay? The First Amendment provides for the freedom of religion. So you guys can worship any religion you want. You want to worship pink monkeys that fly, it don't matter. You can worship anything you want. And I actually got an example I wanted to share with you of kind of a crazy example. Check this out. I always teach about this every year, but it's called the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. It's this crazy religion. Obviously, these people are kind of poking fun at the First Amendment, right? Or taking advantage of it, I guess. But it's this whole crazy religion geared around the flying spaghetti monster. And one of the things it allows them to do as a part of their doctrine is it allows them to, I don't know if you can see these images here. Let's see if I can pull them up for you. It allows that when they go to get a driver license, because it says specifically in the religious doctrine that anytime they take a picture, they're supposed to wear a spaghetti strainer, a pasta strainer on their hat, or on their head. I mean, so take for example this guy here. He's taking his driver license picture in Arizona, and they have to legally allow him to wear this pasta strainer on his head. So anyway, just trying to prove to you and show you that you literally can worship any religion you want based on the First Amendment. Kind of crazy. The next one we're going to talk about is freedom of speech. This also falls underneath the First Amendment. And this kind of goes back to, being able to voice your opinion about the government. Think back in the colonial days, if you were to maybe say something negative about King George III or the British government, or maybe if you live in a country where they have a form of dictatorship, you'd fear for your life if you badmouth the government. You know what I mean? Maybe you'd be arrested. Maybe a family member would come up missing, something like that, right? So freedom of speech is super important for us to be able to give our opinion and speak about, maybe something going on currently today with the coronavirus. Maybe you think the president or the governor or the mayor should be shutting down the city or something like that. So you could basically speak your mind without fear of, being arrested. Freedom of expression also falls underneath freedom of speech. That would be like, for example, wearing a T-shirt, that says, Coach Rod stinks, or maybe you would want to protest the government by burning the flag. Those are all ways that you would express yourself, and it would fall under freedom of speech. So you would be covered by the First Amendment. Okay. Freedom of press. Let's go ahead and move on to that. Freedom of press would be where same kind of thing with freedom of speech, but you would put it in print. So maybe in a magazine, a newspaper, or online. You can basically give your opinion about the government or just anybody without fear of getting in trouble. Now, I will say freedom of speech and freedom of press, you do got to worry about, something called libel or slander. So let's say you came out there and you said Justin Bieber, has HIV and 10 kids out of wedlock. Well, you're just, putting out rumors. You know what I mean? You're not stating a fact or your opinion. So he could actually sue you in a court of law for trying to damage his name. You know what I mean? So may prevent him from getting future jobs or something like that. So what you want to always say is, in my opinion. And if you say in my opinion now, it's not something that you're trying to state as a fact. And so that's how you would go about that. So you can express yourself, your opinion. You just can't put it out there as, you're just trying to put hate on somebody. All right, let's talk about freedom of assembly. Freedom of assembly and freedom of petition. These two kind of date back to the colonial days, back when King George III put a bunch of intolerable acts on the colonists for fear that they were planning a revolution or some kind of a protest against him and the British government, and their control over the American colonies. So freedom of assembly was important to add here with the First Amendment, which basically allows you to get together with your neighbors in a public place and have a meeting to try to make a change, something going on within our government, within our world, within our community, okay? And then freedom of petition. A petition, we've talked about this actually in class before. It's basically a peaceful attempt to try to fix a conflict, a problem that's going on. So basically you'll get, some kind of document, and you'll have a bunch of your, registered voters in your community. They'll all sign it. And basically they're saying that they have the same argument or complaint that you do, and there's something, that there's something to it because there's strength in numbers. I don't know. I always kind of teach it this way. Let's say one of you guys are upset with me maybe I'm giving you too much homework, or you think I'm being unrealistic about an assignment. So you'll go to, our principal and complain about Coach Rod. Well, just you going by yourself, maybe, the principal might think you're kind of whining and complaining, that maybe you're being lazy, you just don't want to do the work. But if you go to the principal and you got a signature of all 150 of my students making that same claim, their strength in numbers, and now somebody high up, you give that petition to somebody high up in the government or somebody high up in the with authority, and now because there's so many people that are vouching and siding with what your claim is because they got their signatures on that petition, now they have to do something about it. So again, it's just a peaceful way of trying to make a change without, grabbing your guns and grabbing your fists and going to fight. But these are all 5 of our guaranteed rights and freedoms under the First Amendment. Okay, we got freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition. All right, remember the hand signals I told you I was going to have. You ready? Let's go. Freedom of religion, right? Pointing upstairs to the heavens, right? Freedom of speech, pointing to my lips. Freedom of press, maybe I'm pressing a button, right? Freedom of assembly, right? Coming together with your neighbors, having a meeting. And then freedom of petition, just pretend like you got a pen and you're writing signatures. Give me 1 second. I'm going to transition now to the Second Amendment. Let me try to stop share for a second. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and move on now to the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment deals with the right to bear arms. I'll kind of roll this down, let you go ahead and start getting that Third Amendment down while I'm talking about the Second Amendment. All right, the Second Amendment, it just basically says we have the right to bear arms, which is we have the right to own a weapon. Okay, that doesn't mean you can, get an AR-15, load it up, and walk around Walmart with it. You got to make sure that you understand the rules and the laws. Okay, there is something called a concealed weapons permit and things like that. You want to make sure that you're abiding by the rules and the laws, and if you do get a weapon, you acquire it legally and such. But we do have the right to, as American citizens, to own a weapon. Okay, that's what the Second Amendment talks about. I'm going to show you guys a clip real quick of Nicolas Cage from the National Treasures movie, and kind of show you kind of what the intention of this Second Amendment is. Give me 1 second here. I'll switch it up. Okay, why do we have the right to bear arms? Okay, I'm going to share this with you real quick. This little clip from the movie National Treasures, and I think it'll help you kind of understand why the framers of the Constitution included it.
180 years of searching, and I'm 3 feet away. Of all the ideas that became the United States, there's a line here that's at the heart of all the others. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. People don't talk that way anymore.
Beautiful. Huh. No idea what you said.
It means if there's something wrong, those who have the ability to take action have the responsibility to take action. I'm gonna steal it.
What?
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Okay, so look, here's what I think it means. If the government becomes too powerful, too tyrannical, kind of like King George III was over the colonists a long time ago, back in the 1700s, it's the duty of the people to rise up and overthrow the government and institute one that protects our natural rights, the rights that we learned that John Locke talked about, life, liberty, and property. So It's a hot topic. I know the Second Amendment's a hot topic in our world today, whether the framers meant for people to have AR-15s, or did they mean muskets? Or I'm going to kind of avoid that conversation with you guys. I'll let you guys determine that on your own. But at the end of the day, Second Amendment, there you go. All right, let's move on now to the Third Amendment. Okay. Well, I forgot to give you the signal for the Second Amendment, but it's real simple. You ready? Second Amendment, right to bear arms. Boom. There you go. You got a little gun. Okay. I used to kid people. I would say, right to bear arms. That means I get to cut the sleeves off my shirt and show off my arms. Anyway, tough crowd in here. All right, let's roll on to the Third Amendment. Here we go. This one's simple. The Third Amendment is called the Quartering Soldiers Act. Okay, so basically, it prevents you from having to house soldiers in your house during war, or just basically just in general. Okay, so just imagine back in the British colonial days. That's kind of where this dates back from. Imagine, one day you're at your house and you get a knock at the door, and you look out and there's 20 soldiers, 20 British soldiers out there on your front lawn, and they're like, "Hey, you got to allow us to come in. You got to let us stay here. You got to feed us." That'd be crazy, right? Well, the Third Amendment prevents you from having to do that. You don't have to quarter soldiers against your will, okay? Simply put, just put the stop sign up, okay? Can't come in here, okay? All right, the Fourth Amendment, moving on. It says it prohibits unreasonable search and seizures, okay? So basically, again, imagine, tonight you get a knock at the door. It's Hillsborough County Sheriff's. We want to come in and search your house for marijuana. Well, you gonna let them in? Well, what do they have to have? What do they have to be able to come in? A search warrant, right? You guys watch Live PD and Cops. You know this. So if they don't have a search warrant, don't let them come in. That's your Fourth Amendment right, okay? Now, if they have a search warrant, they can come in and all that. That's a different deal. But I did read one thing in your book. There was something called the plain sight rule, which I found really interesting. A little story where there's a guy sitting at his kitchen table, and he's participating in illegal drug activity. I guess he's bagging up cocaine or something like that, right? And he's got the windows open, and the sheriff walks by and just is able to look in and see this guy doing this at his table. That's a different deal. You know what I mean? But you don't have to let somebody in your house without a search warrant. Where it gets a little hairy, and you guys, like I said, you watch Live PD, and you know this, is out there in your car. When you're out in the community in your car, or maybe you're at school, it's a little bit different deal, okay? If they can establish probable cause, and then they can probably search you. And then there's that whole debate, what is probable cause? I'm gonna be honest with you, it's very vague. I'm not an expert on it. I would just encourage everybody to just cooperate with administrators and law enforcement. If you ever do get pulled over, just cooperate. That's the best practice, and things usually work out just fine, okay? But if you do have access to maybe somebody in law enforcement, that would be a great conversation to have with them. Talk about probable cause, and what does it mean to have probable cause? How easy is it to establish when you're out there in the community? Okay, I know I see a lot of times they'll have like a German Shepherd, the dog on TV, and they'll walk him around the car, and if he hits, that's usually probable cause enough to be able to do a search. But anyway, it's a good topic. I'm not an expert on it. Might want to talk to somebody that maybe in your family that's in law enforcement. Maybe they can help you out with that. All right, so Fourth Amendment, what's the signal? We'll just do like this. Wave the finger back and forth. No, you can't come in here, right? All right, let's go. Fifth Amendment. Fifth Amendment is a fun one to kind of talk about. There's actually 4 guaranteed rights that we have underneath the Fifth Amendment, okay? You guys get this copy down there as I'm talking, okay? So the first one is something called due process, okay? These are gonna be rights of an accused person, okay? This protects the rights of an accused person. To kind of think of, you're accused of a crime, just kind of think about this as I'm going through it. So you're entitled to due process. So remember we were talking about John Locke earlier, your natural rights are to pursue life, liberty, and own property, right? Well, none of those can be taken away from you without a court of law saying that you did something wrong, determining that you did something wrong, and then taking some kind of rights away from you or locking you up. Okay, you're entitled to your day in court. That's called due process. Okay. The next one is called double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is going to be basically this. You cannot be tried for the same crime twice. Okay, so I always think about famous court cases like O.J. Simpson or Casey Anthony. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about those. Both of them were accused of murder, and whether you think they did it or not is irrelevant. They were accused of murder, and it went through court, and what happened is they were found not guilty, and they were let off. But what happens if the very next day there's evidence that comes out that proves without a shadow of a doubt that they did it? They did the crime, they did the murder. Can they go back and switch the verdict to guilty? The answer is no. Once the trial's over, you cannot go back and try someone for the same crime. Okay, so it's the burden of the people, the prosecutors, to prove to the jury, to convince the jury that they're guilty. And if they can't get that done by the time the trial is over and the decision is made, it's a wrap, even if evidence, new evidence surfaces. Okay, that's called double jeopardy. Now I always get the question, what happens if somebody went out and did another murder? Well, that's a different crime. Okay, of course they can go to court for that. That's a separate charge, but they cannot be charged for the same crime twice. That's double jeopardy. Okay. All right, next one is called self-incrimination. Self-incrimination, I always think of I plead the fifth. It's the Fifth Amendment. I plead the fifth, right? And so whenever you're being accused of a crime, it's not your burden to prove that you didn't do something. It's the accuser. Okay, so the principal calls you up and says, hey, did you steal Coach Rod's stapler? All you got to do is say, I plead the fifth. Now, if she goes and shows you the camera video of you taking my stapler, well, that's on you. That's evidence, right? But you can always say, I plead the fifth. You don't have to testify against yourself. Okay, you shouldn't have to prove your innocence. In America, we're innocent until proven guilty. Okay, so that's going to be self-incrimination, Fifth Amendment. And then the last one here is eminent domain. Eminent domain is it kind of protects your private property. It protects your private property. Okay, so basically, I always ask this question: can the government take your property from you if you own it outright? So I'm not saying you didn't pay the bill, foreclosure, eviction, that kind of thing, right? You own your property, you paid for it, or you're paying for it. Can the government come and take your property from you? The answer is yes, they can, right? If your property, they can seize your property if they're going to use it for something that's going to benefit all in society as a whole, right? So I got two stories for you real quick, okay? So the first one is about my parents' place, right? It used to belong to my grandparents. You guys know on I-75, if you're heading north and you're going to go towards Plant City, Orlando, you get onto the I-4 ramp. It's right there by the big rebel flag. My parents have a place right across the way there on the little on-ramp, okay, that goes on the I-4. Anyway, it's about 5 acres, and it used to be bigger than that. I think like 20 acres or something like that, right? Well, my grandparents used to own it. But one day, the government came in, and they said, we would like to buy this property from you. We're going to put the interstate through here. It's going to help everybody. You know what I mean? Infrastructure. And so my grandparents were excited. They were like, yes, okay, we'll sell it to you. And they got money and paid off some bills and bought a little piece of property up in Georgia, and it was great. And but what happens if you don't want to sell it, right? You don't want to sell your property. Well, there's a story I studied in college, and it was about a lady who lived in a house for like over 200 years, right? And it was in a house that she was born in. It belonged to her grandparents and her grandparents' grandparents. It was very sentimental to her. Well, the government came in and they wanted to buy the property. They were going to build a big manufacturing plant. The Pfizer company was coming in. They were going to build a big manufacturing plant, and it's going to benefit all members in society because they're going to have a lot of jobs, thousands of jobs to be able to offer to people. Now, I do need to take a time out here and explain something to you. If the government takes your property, they have to pay you for it. They have to pay you fair market value price for it. They're not just going to give you a little penny or a little nickel. They're going to pay you what it's worth. Okay, so basically they take an evaluation of the properties that are similar to what you have in the area, and they're going to pay you that. So anyway, going back to this lady in Pennsylvania, she didn't want to sell this house, so she held that as long as she could. Anyway, it goes all the way to court, and they determined, I'm sorry, you're going to have to sell your house. And she got paid for it, moved out and everything. But I always tell this joke, I hope I don't get in in trouble for it, but the Pfizer company's number one product that they make is Viagra. So this lady literally got stiffed by the Pfizer company, losing her house. Tough crowd in here. Anyway, moving on. We got the first 5 amendments done, and we're now going to move on to the last 5. All right, guys, let's roll. 6th Amendment. We're getting there, okay? Halfway there. Okay, 6th Amendment. Let me kind of roll it down so you can see it. There we go. 6th Amendment. These are going to be, I would classify the 6th Amendment as criminal court information, and the 7th Amendment will be civil court cases, okay? So criminal court cases are going to be basically if you got in trouble and you face prison time, something like that, okay? And these are going to be, again, rights of an accused person on trial kind of deal, okay? These are your rights. First thing for the 6th Amendment is going to be you have the right to a fair and speedy trial. They can't just lock you up, throw away the key, and you have your trial in 20 years from now. This is kind of, we got life to live. You know, victims, they need their closure, okay? And if you're not guilty of something, you need your closure so you can move on and live the rest of your life. So you need this kind of happen relatively quick. So if you're ever arrested, you don't go to court right away. Well, you do to determine bail, but to determine if you're innocent or guilty, usually, you know, they push it out 3 months or more, just depending on the high profile of the case, maybe. The evidence that and the witnesses that both sides need to kind of gather. So that kind of takes time. But within a year, I would say, you need to, you'll have your trial, your day in court, and you'll have some finality to it. So you can move on and live the rest of your life. The fair part is you're going to basically go up in front of a jury where, you know, these are people from your community that are going to decide if you're innocent or guilty or not. Okay, that's the fair part. Rather than having one arbitrator, one judge determine things, you'll have a jury that's going to hear the case, and they're supposed to be non-biased. They don't know you, that kind of thing, and they listen to the facts of the case and make the decision. Okay, that's going to be the fair part. I have talked about like Casey Anthony earlier. Casey Anthony case, high profile, and they actually had to move her court case from her community to another county somewhere in the state of Florida, where maybe there were people that hadn't heard of her because it was such a high profile case on TV. But just to guarantee her right to a fair trial is my point, okay? When you're arrested, you've got to be informed of your charges, why you're being detained, and if you can't afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you. Everybody pretty much knows that. That's kind of common sense, right? We talked about the impartial jury. Okay, here's something that's important. So you're gonna have witnesses that are called up that are gonna testify against you. Now, is it possible that you're gonna have witnesses that might tell a lie? Absolutely, right? There's gonna be people out there that are gonna get up there and lie sometimes or not tell the truth. So it's important to understand that your attorney, your lawyer, has the opportunity to cross-examine any witnesses that are brought up to testify against you. So basically, they can try to blow a hole in their credibility and show the jury that, you know, there's some inconsistencies in this guy's lying, okay? The last thing I want to talk about with the 6th Amendment is you have the right to call favorable witnesses in a trial. So what would be a favorable witness? Somebody that's going to talk positive about you and paint this picture to the jury. Again, so the prosecution, they're trying to, you know, paint this picture to the jury that you're this evil person that did this crime, and you know, they should stick it to you. And while your lawyer is trying to paint this picture to the jury that, you know, you're a positive citizen in society, and you're going to call favorable witnesses that are going to basically vouch for you and talk positively about you. You know, so maybe think about your pastor of your church, your teacher, me, Coach Rod. You know what I mean? Your football coach, your employer you work for. Maybe some friends, those kind of things, those kind of people would be examples of favorable witnesses, okay? All right, here we go. Let's move on to the 7th Amendment. The 7th Amendment is going to be something a little bit different. It deals more with civil court cases, okay? It does deal with civil court cases. So what's the difference between a civil court case and a criminal court case? Again, criminal court case, if you're found guilty, you're going to jail, community service, shoot, maybe in some states, even a death penalty, you know what I mean? Some kind of consequence like that. In a civil court case, which is what the Seventh Amendment deals with, it's going to deal with basically money or property. You know, I always tell people that think about Judge Judy or Judge Mathis that you watch on television while you guys are home, right? You always see like two people broke up or two partners broke up. They're having some kind of squabble over money or property or some kind of contract that was broken. Okay, that's basically what we're talking about here with the Seventh Amendment in civil court cases. It deals with money and property. So basically, it provides you the right to a jury trial in civil court cases. In the Constitution, for whatever reason, it says that it has to be for $20 or more. So you know you can't sue somebody for just $1 and expect to have a jury trial. It has to be $20 or more. And I actually saw a court case on People's Court one time where somebody sued somebody for $1. You know what I mean? And it was kind of funny. So, but it was the principle. They were fired up about the way they were treated. But anyway, just to kind of talk about what you see on TV, those folks agreed to go in front of one judge and let that one judge make the decision. When you have one judge making the decision, that's called an arbitrator. And those people mutually agree to, okay, we're going to let this one person make the decision, where you actually have the choice to go in front of a jury trial, like I said, if it's $20 or more, and let the jury determine the outcome of the case. So that's all right. All right, moving on to the 8th. We're getting there, guys. We're getting there. The 8th Amendment. It deals with, it prohibits excessive bails and fines and prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. Okay, let's deal with the first one. Okay, so excessive bails and fines. It basically makes the punishment fit the crime, or the crime fit the punishment, however that works. Anyway, so basically, let's say you get a speeding ticket. You know, you're going on this I-75, 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. They pull you over and the cop writes you a ticket for $2 million. That's excessive, right? Way too excessive. So the punishment's got to fit the crime. That's kind of what the 8th Amendment there is talking about. And then bail is basically what we were talking about a little bit earlier, is whenever you're arrested, you go to the court the next day basically to determine if they're going to set bail for you. And then you can go to a bondsman and bail out and all that stuff. Again, you know, you get arrested for getting in a fight or something like that, right? And they set your bail at $20 million. Okay, that's excessive, right? And so the punishment's got to fit the crime there with bail. And basically, it has to be where, I guess I need to explain that to you, how bail works just a little bit. Basically, I told you earlier, it might take 3 months or longer for your court case to come up in court to determine if you're innocent or guilty for a crime that you're accused of. So you can bail out of jail, go back to your normal life and work, and then just go to the courthouse on the day of your court case months later down the road if you're able to bail out. If you can't bail out by paying that amount of money, then you just just basically will sit in jail until your court date. And so that could be a long time. 3, 4, 5 months can be a long time, if not longer, up to a year. So a lot of times people will pay the money to bail out and go back to work, and you know, they got families and things like that they got to take care of and then deal with the outcome of the court case later on down the road. Anyway, that's enough about bail and bonds. You guys, there's all kind of TV shows on TV. You can learn more about it. But at the end of the day, it can't be too excessive. 8th Amendment kind of keeps that under control. All right, last part about the 8th Amendment, it says it prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. Again, punishment's got to fit the crime. You steal a cookie from the cookie jar, they're not just going to go cut your hand off. You know what I mean? That's cruel and unusual, inhumane. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Medieval Times. They're in Orlando. It's a cool show about, you know, back in the medieval days, how they used to do things. And they have like a little town you can take a tour of. It's like a dinner show too. I think you sit and watch horses and you eat dinner, and it's great. But they have like a little tour around this little town, and they have like a torture area. All these old methods of torture that they used to use to punish people back in the day. If they had this thing, they would stretch people or make somebody sit on a bed of nails. So all those ways are just inhumane and unnecessary, and the 8th Amendment kind of bans those kind of things. And I don't know, I guess like you've seen some change with the death penalty in states. Like Florida used to be the electric chair, and people just felt that was just too inhumane, just too cruel and unusual. So now, if somebody's convicted of murder, they go on death row, they'll die of a lethal injection now in the state of Florida. And I'm not 100% sure, like state to state, that might be a little different. I don't know if there is a state that still uses the electric chair or maybe some other methods like a gas chamber. Or anyway, I'm just bringing that up because it's might apply to this Eighth Amendment in the way that we do things nowadays. All right, here we go. Moving on to the Ninth Amendment. Okay, the Ninth Amendment is basically it's complicated. Okay, I'm going to try to break this down as easy as I can and explain it. And I can tell you this: we have talked about this concept a little bit in our course this far. Okay, let me explain. Remember when we talked about why do we need a government, right? And if we didn't have a government, it would be like the movie The Purge, right? Or kind of like it is right now with the government all shutting down and the craziness going on with supplies running out. It's kind of very scary, right? It's a little scary situation. So we need government to kind of protect us, right? And but here's the question: how much power is too much power? Do you want the government in every little aspect of your life, sticking their nose, big brother, in every little decision, in every little aspect of our life? No, we're Americans. Like, we want freedom, right? We want to have as wide an amount of freedom as we possibly can have, right? And enjoy. Like John Locke says, you know, life, liberty, and own property, right? And the government's instituted to protect those natural rights that we have. Anyway, I say all that to say this, right? There are so many freedoms that we enjoy. They're just too numerous to list out, right? And so we call the Ninth Amendment is the name for it is called the unenumerated rights. Okay, the unenumerated rights. I think I actually spelled this wrong on my notes. Let me fix that. Unenumer. Let me try to fix this for y'all real quick. See if that fixes it real quick. I don't want to sound like an idiot. All right, there we go. I think I got this spelled wrong. This is live TV, guys. So I think I got this spelled wrong. My bad. I'll fix it in a minute, all right? Anyway, unenumerated rights, right? That means there are so many rights out there that we enjoy as Americans. They're just too numerous to list out, okay, within the Bill of Rights. So the Ninth Amendment kind of covers it all, okay? It's kind of like one big old broad amendment that kind of says your freedom to choose, okay? So we enjoy being able to choose where we work, who we marry, what we eat, where we spend our money, right? Those are things that we enjoy on a daily basis, you know? But think about topics like cigarettes or obesity, right? How government tries to control those kind of things. You know, we want to pursue life how we want and what makes us happy, right? Do you want the government, you know, saying, hey, you can't supersize your meal at McDonald's, or you can't get a big Polar Pop? You know what I mean? Yeah, we know those things are bad for us, but if it's something that makes us happy and we enjoy, we should be able to make those decisions on our own without the government trying to step in and limit us on on our freedoms. So telling us what we can and can't do. Now I say that because I read recently where like the state of New York or the city of New York, they have a law where you can't get a soft drink bigger than like 18 ounces or something like that with your meal. So if you wanted a large, you can't get it because they're trying to fight obesity. Or I've heard legislators talk about taking the cartoon characters off of sugary sweet cereals to try to not attract children to gravitate towards those kind of cereals because of the cartoon characters on them or the toy that's on the inside. Or Happy Meals, take the toy out of the Happy Meal so kids aren't attracted to those kind of foods that leads towards obesity. Anyway, at the end of the day, we want to have freedom and be able to make decisions and choose on our own. So I think the Ninth Amendment kind of covers those. When I first started teaching this course, long time ago, gay marriage was actually not legalized. And so that was a change that we saw over my teaching career, where now you can marry either gender. Okay, that's legal now. I wonder if in the future marijuana. I know in some states it's recreational, it's legal for recreational uses, but I wonder if in the state of Florida will follow suit, and then eventually the national level. I think that that's something that the Ninth Amendment, it's a topic that's relevant in our world today with the Ninth Amendment. I think you're going to always see the Ninth Amendment being a conversation in our world. Last thing I'll say is about my mom, my family. My mom, one of her things that she loves to do is sit on the back porch and smoke cigarettes. You know what I mean? I know you can't smoke cigarettes in a car, in a building or something like that with other people around. But and we all know cigarettes are bad for you. It's something that's going to lead towards, potentially lung cancer and things like that, and health problems. But at the end of the day, you want the widest amount of freedom as you possibly can have for you to be able to choose to do things, right? And so if that's what makes my mom happy, sitting on the back porch smoking a cigarette and drinking a glass of Diet Pepsi, hey, God bless her. That's America, right? She has her freedom, and as long as she's not putting harm on somebody else in some kind of way, But that's just my opinion, guys. I'm just trying to help you understand the Ninth Amendment just a little bit more. Our freedoms to choose. Okay. All right. Last one. Let's roll into the 10th Amendment. All right. Basically, this gives states reserved powers. Okay. Like a parking lot has a reserved parking space for handicapped folks. Reserved powers are powers for the states only. Okay. What does this mean? So basically, anything not covered in the national government's constitution is then left up for the states for them to decide how they want to do things. I'll give you quick 2 examples and then we'll land the plane here, okay? First one is establishing schools. Each state has the power to establish schools how they want. They can set schools up how they want. They can determine the curriculum however they want, okay? So if you guys have ever lived in another state or you know friends from another state, they might be taking courses at a different timetable than you are. So for example, 9th grade at East Bay would be American government, where 9th grade in another county in Florida might be a senior year course, right? So it's up to each state for them to be able to determine how they want to do things on an individual basis, and they have the ability to do that because of reserved powers in the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, okay? Another thing is, back when I went to school, we had junior high school. So we had 6th grade centers. We went to elementary school, then 6th grade center, then I went to a 7th grade center. Then we went to junior high, which was 8th and 9th grade, and then high school was 10th, 11th, and 12th, right? So now look at how things are set up differently nowadays, right? It's it's middle school, then high school, right? So it's like 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th through 12th. Well, man, up in the panhandle here in the state, they go 7th through 12th. You know what I mean? In the smaller rural communities. So at the end of the day, I'm just trying to tell you, schools have the ability, or states have the ability to set schools up a little bit different based on their needs and how they want to, because they have reserved powers given to them with the 10th Amendment. Last thing I'll mention is driver license age requirements. Okay, if you Google it and you look up state by state, requirements might be a little different around the country, state by state, because they're allowed to determine that on their own. And we just keep it that simple. I do know the federal level has some influences on that, but state by state, maybe they'll let you get your learning permit at 15, but then at 16 you can get your driver license. But I know things are a little bit different state to state, and what the rules and laws are pertaining to driver license age requirements. So anyway, I hope that clears things up. The 10th Amendment, reserve powers. We went 1 through 10. You guys post your notes up, if you would, for me on the Bill of Rights. Right there in the assignment on EDSB. I'll get that taken care of for you ASAP. And then I want you to go and find this little quiz based off what you just learned here with the first 10 amendments. I want you to take this quiz. It's going to be between 10 and 20 questions, multiple choice and true false on EDSB, and you'll get a grade for that. And then we'll be done with the Bill of Rights, and we're moving on to federalism. All right? Y'all take care and get her done.